think we're live, right? Hello, welcome.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So, hey, everyone, welcome to our session here. My name is Leslie Maher. I'm going to be the moderator for our session today. And you've probably joined because this session is about changing routes to market. And so I'm sure many of you are considering how do you grow your business and what routes to market will help you do that. So that's what our session is about. We'll get into some introductions, but I have a fantastic panel here with me who have a lot of experience in many of the different routes that we'll talk about. I'll kick off the introduction. So my role, Leslie Maher, I'm responsible for our global channel partners and strategic alliances at a company called Virtana. And what Virtana does is hybrid observability. It's a modern platform for hybrid observability. So I'm really thrilled to be here and moderating this panel. So to get started, what I'd like to ask each of the panelists to do is introduce yourself, what company and what role do you represent, and just give us a little bit, really briefly, background so the audience knows who we have on the panel. Let's start, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting a little feedback, Leslie, but yeah, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah. You sound fine to me.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Tim Acker. I actually serve as a fractional go-to-market consultant today. So I help companies thinking about their sales motion, their channel motion, and things like RevOps, thinking about their tech stack, et cetera, all in technology companies. I hail from 25 plus years in the channel, spent 15 years at distribution. I more recently served as both the SVP of partnerships to start and then as Chief Revenue Officer for a small cybersecurity company based in LA. So again, I think, you asked the question of us is what are our superpowers as it relates to being a channel leader. I've really come from a background where co-sell has been super important. I think before co-sell and marketplace, and I'm sure we're going to get into that today. So really thinking about how to bring sales teams together with channel partners and CAMs and the channel organizations to really help customers implement tech and get the right infrastructure in place. So excited for the conversation today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining. How about Craig?
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Craig Patterson. Excited to be with you all here today. I'm the SVP of Global Channels at Aryaka. And so Aryaka is a 12-year-old company focused around unified SASE. And so when we talk about unification, we're talking about the convergence of networking and security coming together on a unified architecture. And so I lead our global channels. And so here at Aryaka, we have a global channel program with partners throughout Europe, Asia Pacific, and North America. I've spent about 25 years or so of my life, the best years, by the way, of my life in the channel. And prior to Aryaka, I spent about 18 years running a good portion of the go-to-market strategy at Lumen. So excited to be here. And then in terms of my superpower, I'm a culture guy. So the thing that I always strive to do is create a culture that our employees, want to be a part of. And then more importantly, a culture the partners, want to participate in terms of the channel program we create.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, and for the audience, I would never ask this question without giving people a heads up. I did ask them all to come prepared to tell me what their channel superpower was, because nothing like being blindsided with that question live. So, Guy, how about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Guy Cunningham, head of channels at Authenticate. We are a solution that provides a secure and anonymous web browser for cyber threat and open source intelligence teams as they're doing digital sensitive investigations and research. Work a lot in the Federal Department of Defense intelligence community and a lot of enterprise cybersecurity operations teams. Been in the channel for about 20 years, and I would say my superpower would be starting programs from scratch for vendors that haven't had a channel motion.
Great. That could come in handy in this discussion. So thank you. Awesome. And then Rob, how about yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Leslie. Hey, everyone. Rob Spee. I'm head of global partner ecosystems at BeyondTrust. We are a cybersecurity company. We specialize in the area of identity security and access management, privileged access. Really hot topic, hot field right now. My superpower, I think, is around strategy, coming in and really defining the global partner strategy that aligns to the company strategy. and then really gaining alignment across the company and driving and executing and building the team to execute on that strategy.
That's great. So thank you all so much. And I'm sure for our audience, you can tell there's going to be a lot of great examples each of these leaders have implemented. I think to set the stage, what would make sense, I'm not going to ask every panelist the same question, but I do want to ask this one question of each of the panelists because I think it sets the stage because everyone is in a different stage in their journey with having expanding routes to market. And I know in my past and my current roles, there's traditional routes to market that you've sort of mastered and new ones that you're prioritizing to go after. So could I ask each of you maybe to share a little bit of perspective on historically, where have you been strong and where are you looking to expand in your partner ecosystem? Again, I'll just kind of go in the view I see well. So we'll start with Tim again. Sorry, we'll go in order.
Yeah, Leslie, I'll give you the context based on my last role as a channel leader. And it actually evened out sort of a third between MSPs, sort of traditional service providers that were, helping customers, ISVs. So we worked quite a bit with other, tech ecosystem players and sold together in the marketplace. And then ultimately, your very classic, VAR, corporate reseller type of partner. Typically those that focused a little bit more on security and security-based solutions, but evened out to about a third.
Okay, great. Thank you. How about Craig?
All right. So when you think about Aryaka here, we have varying routes to market. In fact, 90% of our revenue globally comes through channels. So that always gets me excited every single morning. But when I think of our routes to market, we have a primary route that's the agent strategy, which is very prevalent here in North America. We're starting to see that emerge a little bit in Europe, throughout the UK, things in places like that. We're starting to see that model emerge. We also have a VAR and reseller route to market. We focus on a little bit of marketplace. And then we also have a solution provider route to market. So that's, aligning with companies like SoftBank, who's based in Tokyo. I'm actually going there next week. And then also Deutsche Telekom in Europe. And so our solution is part of their overarching portfolio, and we align with their go-to-market teams to sell our services. So that's kind of a general overview of Aryaka.
Okay. Any particular route to market that you're looking to expand? Because, which one is mature?
Yeah. Yep. So that's a great question. So we recently launched what we call our SASE 1.0 offering, which is our unified security that's integrated into the network offering. And so with that, we're starting to get some traction now in the MSP community and also the MSSP community. So working to optimize that route to market, which means we have to make some adjustments. So, that's what's on the horizon for us.
Okay, good. Thank you. Guy?
Yeah, I've been involved in everything that's been mentioned. I'd say today we're principally focused on the reseller route to market. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit for us. But we do have strategies that we're working on cracking into the MSP route, and that is substantially different than the reseller route to market. And I'm also responsible for ISVs, and that's new to me, the kind of technical integrations and the OEM relationships with other software vendors. So I think I'm learning and focusing on the ISV relationships because they, I think, hold the broadest scale for us. Opportunity to scale into more customers. But a couple of additional routes that I've been involved in and are starting to become more and more prevalent, I think, are the referral or the influencer route to market and marketplaces. And the marketplaces seem like an easy button, but they're not. So as we dig into that conversation, I'm sure we'll have some scars to share with everybody.
Excellent. Great. And then Rob.
Yeah, I got my start almost 30 years ago, Leslie, as a global, or I'd say international channel manager. And that was a lot of fun. That got just really enamored with the channel. From there, I went on into distribution. I then went into becoming a reseller myself, building out a VAR practice. So kind of always had been in the channels. When I joined BeyondTrust, they had started a journey going from the classic perpetual on-prem model to the SaaS subscription model. And so I was asked to come in and build a modern partner ecosystem. So we've been really busy investing in our partnerships, ISV partnerships, hyperscaler, marketplace, GSIs, service delivery partners, MSPs, really building it out. So last 2.5 years have been really exciting, adding in all those different partner motions and getting those integrated into the partner team and programs.
Great. So first of all, great backdrop, because I mean, I think you all have different strengths and areas that, you know, we're all dying to learn more about. And also I want to thank everyone who's already putting some questions in the window. We're going to definitely get to your questions and any feedback. So, you know, use the chat to let us know. I think I'll start with a question in the window. And it actually is one that, you know, I would love to understand more is, you know, as you expand your partner ecosystem, partner types, do you do that under one program, you know, or have you created multiple programs, and any insights on lessons learned as you've done that? So maybe, if you don't mind, Craig, maybe I'll come to you to start that discussion, and then anyone else can chime in.
Yeah, no, happy to jump in there. And so I'll just give you my perspective on what we've done here at Aryaka. And so, you know, here at Aryaka, we've created, of course, our overarching channel program strategy, which we call Accelerate. And so that's all things channel, right? And so that's the program that we broadly market. And then as you dig a little bit deeper, you double click into the program itself, we start to define specific programs for our varying routes to market. And the reason we do that is because the partner types have different needs, right? And so the needs of an agent partner is wildly different than a resale partner or a solution provider. And so we've created very specific programs to align around the needs. And of course, within those programs, we have certain benefits. We have certain support resources that we align, just because everybody's a little bit different in terms of the needs they have within the program. So it's kind of a general overview there.
So if I understand how you're describing it, then you have an overarching program, but
Yep.
you do have separate programs underneath, kind of customized and tailored to the needs of that route to market.
So
Okay.
General program that we have a specific route for the agent community, we have one for the resale community, and we have one for the solution provider community. Loose one defined for the marketplace, but that's more forward thinking. You know, marketplace in my mind today isn't something that where a lot of transactions are taking place, but I think, you know, all of us need to be thinking about that for the future, because as we continue to evolve, you know, I believe that'll be, you know, an area where all companies need to be focused.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Craig. Craig, we here at Authenticate, we see a lot of resellers that are building managed services practices. So when you have a singular partner that's potentially in both types of motion, go-to-market motion, how are you handling that?
Yeah, it's actually a great question, because I'm seeing some traditional resellers move to the agency model. And a lot of the reason behind that is they're moving just due to the risk associated with some of the strategic opportunities. And so what we found is some of the traditional resellers don't have the appetite to do the resale strategy on large engagements, because it creates a lot of, you know, risk for them. And so we actually provide the option. So if you're a partner, guess what? You want to work with us as an agent? Great. You want to work with us as a reseller? Great. We'll support you either way. You know, here's how we will structure that. Here's the support model. Here's the financials. Here's all those things. And ultimately, you partner, you pick what's best for you, and we'll support you either way.
We
Yeah, I
took
think
a similar approach, Leslie. We condensed 15 programs down into one global program, one click-through agreement. The partner signs it, and then they have the option to be an MSP, be a reseller, be a service delivery partner. Now, there are different program requirements and benefits, like Craig was talking to, that we greatly simplified. And it also was, our legal team loved it, because all the custom agreements that they were doing around the globe, now we only get into those with the most strategic partners, where you want to redline that click-through.
Yeah, and I think there's and Tim, I want you to comment on this too. I think, you know, there's also a question in the chat, right? Is that you know, it's partner types is really a confusing concept, because a partner themselves can have different personas, different lines of business, and so it sounds like, Rob, what you're describing is you're creating a relationship with the partner, and then you can transact with them depending on the business model that aligns to whatever the go-to-market you're doing with them is.
Yeah, and you'll have the single partner have 3 or 4 different models that they want to operate in with you.
Right. And so to require them to have 3 contracts and 3 different engagements with you, I'm sure it can get confusing. Tim, do you want to add any comments?
Yeah, listen, I think that the model's is spot on. In both the advisory work that I'm doing today and then in the last couple of channel chief roles that I've served in, some key unlocks around, I think just to the point, oftentimes vendors like to put partners into a sort of a nomenclature or a box that we think they're MSP or, what have you. And so defining options and routes to markets is certainly important, and then let them choose. And sometimes that may be based on the opportunity where they want to play. And I'll give you a great example. When we dealt with many of the global SIs, some of them actually have operate-based services. So where they act like a service provider, they look like a very big MSP. That motion, requires a very different, selling motion, obviously support motion, et cetera. And then on the other side of the house, they may be providing advisory only because they may be doing, consulting work or something that requires sort of separation. So having one relationship, but potentially 2 routes to market for the same partner within a framework like Rob talked about, I think can be pretty powerful.
Great. Yeah, and we may come back to that and get some additional details, but I did want to go to, because I think that's really an important topic for many of us trying to figure out how to have that one program. I would like to spend a little time, because I think this is top of mind, I know for me personally, but also, it came out in the introductions. I think there's a lot of interest in expanding the MSP route to market. And I know, my own experiences, it's not just the program, which is an important part of it, but it's also things like pricing, your offering in general. So I'd love to, maybe start with you, Guy, and talk a little bit about any experiences or lessons learned or insights you can share around, the MSP route to market, as, I know you said you're looking to expand that as well.
Yeah, in my previous role, we built an MSP program from scratch, and after 4 years, we had about 700 MSPs participating in it. And I would say there are a couple of things. The product has to be multi-tenant. So the MSP is going to want to manage out of a single pane of glass whenever possible. So multi-tenant. And then the pricing model needs to be subscription-based. They want to align the pricing to their revenue, which is typically on a monthly basis. So they're going to try and avoid paying for stuff up front whenever possible. And we built out a program that was a tiered pricing model based upon the aggregate deployment across all of their customers. So not pricing on a per customer engagement, but across the MSP. And then from a support perspective, you want to treat the MSP as the customer, support the MSP, and allow them to support the end user. Beyond that, whenever possible, you should think about integrating into the tools and the platforms that MSPs use to run their business. They're going to have an RMM, or remote monitoring and management solution. They're going to have a PSA, or professional services automation platform. And you want to plug into those wherever possible, because that's where they live and breathe on a day-to-day basis.
No, great feedback. I concur with a lot of what you said, having, also working on expanding in that area. Anyone else want to comment on MSP experiences?
I agree completely with Guy. What those requirements are to have a widespread MSP program. We're not quite there yet on all of those requirements, but we're still getting started, because the larger MSPs, the GSIs who act as MSPs, they can handle kind of your traditional legacy infrastructure, right? Without multi-tenancy, every big customer is a tenant, is a client. We can get a little bit more flexible and creative on our pricing. So we've built out what I'd say is kind of stage 1 of our MSP program, because we wanted to get it started, right? And that gets the conversation going and helps get the company behind it, get the development team behind it. So I think you don't wait to get all that in place. Get started with whatever you can do, and then start building momentum and support for everything else.
So kind of build the plane, flying it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, Robin, that, an MSP is not a universal term. So I think as you're building out your MSP practice, you need to define what does MSP mean to you, because there are MSPs that focus on small, medium business.
Right.
And they do everything. There are MSPs that, like a GSI, they're going to come in and outsource a business function, providing managed services for a business function. There are network-focused MSPs, there are application-focused MSPs, and so really understanding within that overall designation, what are you really looking for and building the program specifically for them.
You know, I have to ask you, Guy, before we either let another panelist talk or switch topics, to go to that extensive amount of MSPs that you were able to get in 4 years. What was the key to your success? What do you think you did that enabled you that kind of growth?
A lot of it was partnering with one of the big RMM vendors, and having a wholesale relationship with them. And that really helped to amplify our brand, and that helped get us market recognition. And as that relationship matured and candidly started to wane a little bit, we were able to kind of expand our own brand standalone and continue to that accelerated growth.
So you essentially became part of the community by engaging with that RMM. Okay, awesome. Good. Well, let me, if you guys don't, unless anyone else has another comment, I might go to another topic. I think that as we were talking through each of the partner types or business models that you engage with your route to market, the agent model came up. And again, I think for many of us, I think there's a lot of knowledge within the channel community on more of the traditional resale model. I know people are moving to MSP, but agent is not always deployed, in every company. And just curious, maybe Craig, if you want to start that conversation.
Yeah, obviously got a lot of experience in this space. And so when I think of the agency model, I mean, this is a great way for companies like us to scale, right? Because there's no way a company the size of Aryaka could potentially cover the market holistically without leveraging an agency model. And so the way the agency model works is that we contract directly with some of the major, what we call technology solution distributors. And here in, the US, there's essentially, 5. And those 5 major, what we call TSDs, represent about 6,000, 7,000 selling channel companies. And so the value for a provider is that you get to leverage those relationships, those 5 strategic relationships, to get access to all those sellers, right? They can represent your products and services into the marketplace. The beauty of it, it's a pay for performance model. You're not paying unless they're selling your services. And so, and I think there's probably a few people that don't quite understand the model. So I'll give a little bit of context. The way the model works is that, the selling channel companies represent your services. Essentially, they become an extension of your sales force. They work directly with their trusted relationships. And when it comes time to transact, the provider, in this case, Aryaka, would contract directly with that end user customer. And then in return, we pay that partner a residual commission, essentially a % of revenue for the life of that particular customer. And so it's a great way for us to expand our scale and size without incurring a tremendous amount of operational costs.
And so, Guy, you want to comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have some questions for Craig on this because,
okay, all right.
Coming from the traditional software vendor space, I know that the agents really grew out of that telco space, connectivity and the VoIP and whatnot. There are several things that I've always struggled with, and I'd love to get your feedback on this, is the evergreen component of renewals, of commissions, and then what level of effort are you expecting that agent to put against gathering the renewal? And then also for people that are considering getting into that agent space, it's not just sign up with the TSD and then you're good, you're golden. You have to really invest in marketing and getting awareness spread out across those 6,000 or 7,000 reselling companies.
Yep. All right. Well, great questions, by the way, guys.
I love it when the panelists are also helping moderate, so that's awesome.
Yep. So, all right. So let's break that down. Let's first talk about the renewal piece, right? And so, in terms of the renewal strategy, what we ask partners to do is participate. And so, in terms of our program, we set policies and procedures in terms of the responsibilities of that particular partner. And so, that starts at the deal registration phase, right? They uncover an opportunity, they submit it in, certain requirements that we expect from the partner, which are, one, orchestrate a call, right? Help us have a conversation with that end user customer. 2, participate in that engagement, right, over the course of the sales cycle. And then 3, once we get into a point of closing that particular opportunity, we ask that they participate, in terms of helping us on the customer success side. Participate in those QBR sessions where we're talking about, the status quo of the customer. We're talking about, just key updates, things along those lines. And then also help us at the time of renewal, participate in that renewal cycle. That's all we ask. We don't ask that they take care of all the day-to-day level 1, level 2 support. We just basically ask that they have an active role in that engagement. And if so, we'll continue to pay them their residual commission, for the life of that particular customer. And I think there was a question on why we would pay the residual for the life of the customer. I think I saw that in the chat.
Yep.
And to me, that comes down to your policies and procedures, because there's one thing that partners want to understand is they want to have a level of trust, right? If they're going to bring you these trusted relationships they've worked so hard to have or create over the last decade or so, they want to feel protected if they bring that customer to you. And so, in terms of a policy and for Aryaka, like, we want to be a channel first organization, which means we want to set our policies in a way to protect those partners so they feel confident, they feel trusted, they feel protected. So when they bring those relationships to us, they know that we have their back.
Hey, Craig, if I can maybe pile on, your point around CS is incredibly important, because I think there's not only the trusted advisor relationship in terms of acquisition, but then it's ongoing management and keeping them on the service. Yep. I think it manifests in a couple of ways. If you're a vendor that has upsell, cross-sell type of opportunities, in my experience, while not all agents are created equal, I would say agents have a higher propensity of actually expanding your wallet share with the customer. They're very good at adding on services after the initial sale, in addition to keeping the customer on the hook for what you sold them in the first place. So, Guy, I think your question, I think independent of the economics on a deal by deal basis, which of course, your results may vary, I actually think they're probably best equipped on the CS, upsell, cross-sell, and lifetime value of the customer, among many other channels that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comment's spot on. So a couple data points I'd give you. When I look at the amount of services that we book on a monthly basis, half of the new revenue that we drive every single month is coming from the existing base, with the vast majority of that coming through our channel community. To validate your point, Tim, partners are driving a lot of upsell and cross-sell. And then when you look at our revenue retention, when you look at the sales channels retaining the revenue the most, well, guess what? It's the channel, because the channel partners have a vested interest in making sure those customers remain on term.
So I think, this is a great exposure to this for a lot of people who don't have familiarity. So, I think we could probably deep dive on just this one topic. I do want to maybe change directions just a little bit, because we're talking about the full ecosystem, and maybe just talk about your teams. So, as you're doing these, as you're engaging these different partner types, maybe we'll start with Rob. But has this required different talent, different individuals? You using the same team to manage the different personas within a partner? Maybe you could talk a little bit about your teams and how you're dealing with kind of the expanded complexity, and as you add your different routes to market.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest challenges. So one thing I've been doing over the last 2 years is really consolidating the team, just like we've consolidated the program. So we had separate teams for all the different partner types. We're merging those together because we really want to drive an orchestrated ecosystem. So we want our partner managers, who were classically called CAMs, channel account managers, we rebranded them partner managers, and we want them to be the orchestrators of that ecosystem. So I blended in the GSI team into that. We're starting to blend in even the alliances team into that motion, so that they are the conduit to sales, and the sales team, the field team, for co-selling with the entire ecosystem, or co-marketing and co-delivering, all that ecosystem engagement. The challenge with that then is, what kind of individual has the business acumen to be able to go out and understand all these different partner types, all these different business models, build business plans with them, and drive that engagement? that requires a big upskilling. So we have been working really diligently with some outside help to upskill our partner managers to be able to handle this. And not everybody can do it. We've had some turnover, to get the right set of individuals, and bringing in a really strong leadership team for me, partner ecosystem leaders in each theater who can help coach and build up that team. So we've put a lot of effort into this.
Yeah, it would seem, that you are moving them potentially from a programmatic in some role case to really a business leader, because, again, if a partner has multiple, outcomes they can deliver with you, you have to really be thinking about the business overall. Anyone else want to comment on talent, organizational development, how you do coverage?
Yeah, I'm happy to give a few thoughts here. And this kind of goes back to Guy's other question I didn't get a chance to answer around the sponsorship. So he's right. When you look at the agent model, I mean, just signing a TSD is step one, right? Then you've got to make the level of commitment in terms of the monetary sponsorships that you're going to put into those relationships. And that's the same across more than just agent. That happens in the MSP community as well. But then it comes down to the resources. And so what we've done is we've set up what we call a national channel manager. And those national channel managers are responsible for the most strategic relationships, or the TSDs. And so they're creating the playbook, they're creating the strategy that we execute on throughout the course of the year. Of course, in that we have, promotions, we have events, we have webinars, we have QBRs, all those things that they orchestrate at the national level. And then locally, in the local markets, we have what we call CAMs. We call them CAMs, Rob. We haven't changed the name. And so what they do is they support all the local markets in their territory, because you've got to have someone in market having conversations with those 5,000, 6,000 partners nationally to create those relationships. You got to be driving that on a day-by-day basis to create the engagement, which will then create demand gen for you as a program. And then lastly, we have some inside folks that are actively looking at partners that have not sold for us in the past. And so they're trying to create activation with partners that we classify as being dormant. Basically they've done no business with us. And once we make that connection, once we have a partner that's interested, that gets transitioned back out to one of those CAMs in the market who will pick them up once they're ready to start that enablement piece.
There was a question in the chat, Rob, if you're able to share who you engaged with for that training you did externally.
She's actually on this call, Teresa with Achieve Unite.
Okay. Did she ask the question? No, she didn't. She
No,
was the
she
other one.
didn't ask the question.
All right. A couple of themes in the chat that I actually was also going to ask about, and it talks about. The theme of some of the questions are, for example, one of the questions was, do you have multiple partner types on a single opportunity? Do you incentivize the different partner types differently? And so I'm going to, maybe bring it up a level and ask you a question. Do you see conflict among these different channels? And, or do you see it as collaborative? And how have you either supported your program to, reduce any kind of conflict or, create more of an ecosystem approach? So anyone want to take that question?
I'm happy to.
Good.
I think I've seen less channel conflict now that we've been more intentional about this. You used to kind of accidentally get multiple partners in the account fighting over the deal. And now we're more intentional about it, the account strategy, the partner strategy within the account. And we are driving to have multiple partners in the account working with us. And that could be a partner that originated the deal, whether it was a GSI or a service delivery partner or a reseller, but they're only solving part of the equation. So we look at it from the customer perspective and the entire buyer journey. What partners are required to help that customer be successful, pre-sales, point of sale, and post-sales. So we're having more and more deals with more than one, many times 3 or more partners in the deal.
And would you say, and again, I'll let anyone else answer my original question too, but I'm curious for all of you, are there, as you're creating your routes to market, are some more profitable? And so does that create any conflict for you, where, one motion may be good, but another motion is more profitable or more sticky and more desirable? And how do you handle that as well? Okay, it sounds like that might be an open question people are still working on then. Yeah, I know in our case, we do have different routes to market that in some instances, one may be more beneficial than the other. And, I kind of tying into the same area is, do you use deal registration on all your routes to market?
Yeah, I mean, I'll comment on both actually, Leslie.
Okay.
So in terms of the conflict, I mean, we leverage our deal registration policy to mitigate that as best we can. Of course, nothing's perfect, right? But as long as you have a policy that's well-defined and you're consistent in your approach in terms of how you handle those, I think that's the right thing you need to do to establish, credibility with the partner community. What we do is we allow multiple partners to participate in the same opportunity for a certain period of time. And so when you think about the early part of a sales cycle, right, when it's discovery, there's initial conversations that are being had. I mean, at that point, we don't know what partner is best suited for that opportunity. And so we allow for multiple partners to participate in that. Once that opportunity reaches a certain stage, it becomes protected. So at that point, we lock it down once we have a technical validation of the opportunity. Because at that point, we believe the opportunity has been well-defined and the partner has, credibility with that particular customer. Therefore, we want to work with them on that opportunity to go forward. And so
your partners know coming into it, they may not ultimately get a deal registration. There's a certain point. Okay.
It's open for a certain period of time. Once it hits a certain stage, which is a technical validation stage, at that point, it becomes locked, and we would not allow another partner to come in on that opportunity. And then to comment on your other topic around the profitability, it's a tough question to answer because there's multiple pieces that go into it. And I think of the difference between like a resell versus agent. An agent gets a residual commission versus a resell gets a buy rate, and they make their margin on what they sell it to the end user customer. But I also think the roles and responsibilities vary in those two models. And so when you think about a resale partner, they have certain inherent responsibilities where they're required to take care of that frontline support. They're required to take care of that tier 2 support, right? And so it's really hard to look at the two side by side. And I think ultimately you'll need to look at the profitability of your program holistically, right? You need to leverage multiple routes to market. You can't get, sort of laser focused on one route versus the other because you need all of them holistically.
Yeah, Leslie, I'd say too, there was a lot in that piece, right, around pricing and deal reg. And of course, deal reg becomes a science, particularly in multi-partner engagements, right? And part of that, by the way, is you having to sign up for having the systems to do attribution correctly, which is oftentimes not very easy. I think many companies still struggle with attribution between direct and indirect altogether. And so I think that's something to certainly keep in mind as you go down that road. I think for what maybe Guy brought up earlier, and I'll just talk to the MSP market as an example there, you have sort of a natural way to control pricing and profitability because it's more based on a consumption type of model, right? Where they're aggregating a certain number of customers and doing things like taking first and potentially second level support off of you, in which case that's reflected in your pricing and then ultimately in your profitability metrics. I also think it's seasonal. And what I mean by that is, there's there's changes in the business life cycle in which certain channels are going to be more profitable. And it's depending on your own staffing. Like right now, when it's easier to get staffing, certain routes to market are much more affordable than others when it's really hard to get staff or talent on board. So I think you have to play with those levers. Pricing, these sort of lanes and routes to market can help you with that. And then ultimately, again, back to the comment on deal reg, be sure that you can really, I think Craig's example of locking in after, let's say, a proof of concept or technical validation, perfect. And then, make sure that you don't create the burden on yourself to do outbound partnerships. Let some of those partners come together to go deliver a solution together for a customer. You pay once, let them put it together and ultimately affect the customer outcome.
No, that's great advice. Yeah, Guy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, on the deal reg, I think deal reg applies to resellers and agents. I don't think it really applies to MSPs because they are not transacting a product. They are selling a collection of products wrapped around with their managed services. So they're going to once you sign up an MSP, the ideal is to get them to standardize your product in all of their customers. And they're not going to register each and every customer deal. In fact, they resist that pretty strongly. So just build your expectations around that, specifically within the MSP market.
To your point, Guy, the MSP is the customer, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I said in the context of, potentially, again, conflict with your other channels, but your suggestion or your feedback is that could happen, but because they're selling a solution that includes lots of different parts, it's not necessarily really an apples to apples comparison anyway.
Right.
Leslie, the way we approach this is you look at the different partner types that could be engaged in the single account. What do we want them to do? Where is their value to us? And what do they want from us and the customer? What is the motivation for them? So the reseller is looking for that margin. The hyperscaler wants the cloud, increase the cloud consumption. The GSI influencer wants to just integrate this into a big transformation project. So they all have different motivations. So I think if you look at it in the big context, what motivates them, then you can spread out all of the different levers that you have as incentives on that deal and as part of your program. And that, I think that helps eliminate the conflict between these different motions.
And, we got a comment in the chat, which I think is also an interesting point, right? And the comment was that some of the MSPs now are actually potentially wanting deal registration, probably, for their own protection as well. So, I think it's not a simple topic, but I think it's great feedback from everybody. So we're just about out of time here. I know I've learned a ton in this, so I hope our audience has too. Maybe just to wrap it up, give you guys each 30 seconds. I'm sure a lot of the people on this call come from smaller companies, and even at a large company. How do you make your decision on investment? What's probably the way you kind of decide which channel you want to, or which route to market you want to add, and any thoughts on how you go through that process? And I know that's probably a longer question, but maybe just a quick either that question or a closing thought from any of you. So we'll start with Tim.
Yeah, I would say, and I'll just take it from the ISV lens, right? We didn't spend a lot of time on that.
We did not, yeah.
Interest. I would say, a guy mentioned this a little bit earlier. It's a really big unlock, I think, for many, particularly small software vendors. And I'd ask and encourage people on the call to explore that. And I think you can start very simply, right? Do some meet in the channel or meet in the customer type of opportunities, prove out that the two of you, sort of a 1 + 1 = 3 for a customer, and let customers ultimately tell that story. So I'd say that's an improving route to market. I think for many software companies we're engaged with, I encourage people to take a look at that. But definitely be careful of that. Don't look for the press release or the big partnership. Go prove it and wade in slowly is my advice.
And thank you for bringing up ISVs, because you're right, we didn't get into that very much. Thank you. Craig, any final thoughts?
Yeah, quickly. By the way, if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, be happy to answer any other questions. For us, it's all data driven, right? So we look at the investments we've made historically. We look at the return on those investments. We understand if I put $1 in over here, what I'm going to get out on this side. And so we use data to drive those decisions, every single quarter, every single fiscal year. And in fact, we're getting ready to go in our planning for next fiscal year. We're using all that data to align on where we're going to make our investments here going forward. So the key is learn your numbers, everybody. Learn your numbers and what the return is and the cost per lead and return on investment.
Thank you. And great insights today, Craig. Really appreciate it. Guy, final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say for people that are either trying to determine their channel strategy or determine what to expand into, don't try to do everything all at once. Narrow your focus, pick the one route to market that has got the highest probability of success, and double down on your bets there, establish some momentum, and then incrementally expand into other channels, other routes to market.
So focus matters. Great. Again, Guy, thank you for your insights too. Fantastic. And then Rob, final guy.
Yeah, just to expand on what Guy is saying, I totally agree. Pick that one. And how do you pick it? I'd start with the customer. And what is that gap between your company and your strengths and what the customer truly needs throughout their buyer journey? Where's that greatest opportunity for value add? Pick that channel that offers that and start there.
Well, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our audience. Hopefully we answered most of your questions. If not, I'm sure any of these speakers would be glad to follow up with you. And I know I learned a lot again. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks.
Enjoyed it.